Dan, we're trying to film here, Bubba, and record.
It's okay. You can't hear it on here.
Okay, we're trying to get started with our podcast here, and I got a dog that is trying to get comfortable. I think he's trying to make up for the embarrassing moment that he had a few minutes ago where he fell in a 5-foot deep, 20-foot long hole at my house that's being dug for a water line. We did not see the actual fall. It wasn't hurt. He was just standing in the bottom with water up to his waist. So anyhow, he's covered in mud, and his cohort here didn't help him get out. With the guy that's digging the hole had to get off the machine and go down there and rescue the dog. So anyhow, that's how we're starting the day.
Did Krista just stand above and watch?
No, Krista was like all excited because everyone was trying to help Dan, so he's just running around in circles, jumping from mound to mound. So anyhow, guys, we got a good podcast for you, a great podcast, because it's hunting season and we're going to give you an update. We also got a couple topics that you guys have sent in that we're going to be discussing. One of those is I know we've talked about some cellular cameras and what our thoughts are. We differ on our thoughts and uses and things like that a little bit. So we're going to touch on that again. And then we did have a gentleman that sent in a really good question, in my opinion, talking about land management. So we're going to tie all that into an update on what we got going on and what's been going on here and where we think everything is at as far as the bow hunting season in Iowa. And with that, I'll turn it over to Warren, who might have a few people that he needs to shout out to. I think we kind of missed that last week because Warren was AOL for a couple minutes.
What's AOL?
Yeah.
Huh?
I was getting my email.
What is
AWOL is what I meant to say. Sorry.
Okay. So YouTube, Brian Sheffield, 7037. Great episode again. You guys always do a good job of covering these topics. Jeremy Rupsick, great video cast as usual. Congrats, David, on the buck. The drought has made it tough here, but I can say I have all kinds of animals hitting my mock scrape with Scrape King and Buck Junkie.
Nice.
William Ayers, SB4TT. Another great episode, guys. You should always have several spots in different locations to hunt. You never know what may happen. Eric Robards, 1209. He says, good podcast, guys. Fun listening to this one, and I'm speechless on the FDR comment, Easton.
Oh, I didn't think it was that bad.
It was that bad.
Iowa Racks and Birds. Yoder. Great podcast today. Looking forward to sending my success story over. Congrats, dude. As always, the best in the Midwest. And then Raised Right. Did I just watch a video of yours from Raised Hunting channel from the first or second season, and Easton blew off hunting to go pick up cats?
I did do such a thing.
What the heck? Haha. Sorry,
Hey.
I just thought that was hilarious. As always, enjoy the conversation, fellas.
One of them suckers is still running around, and he's still stronger than ever, scaring coyotes off and everything.
Octavius is still kicking.
That's the perfect name for him.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Zeus didn't. Which,
little love
honestly,
to our Apple folks real quick.
Zeus, it was a terrible name, evidently. I don't think a god is supposed to ever die. And Zeus did not make it.
Obviously, those gods have never met Mom.
You better not ever let her hear you say that. You better explain that a little bit.
So the episode this gentleman's referring to, Easton went and got 2 cats, which I agreed to. They were going to be barn cats, and they were going to stay outside, and that's how we were going to deal with them. That lasted about a week, and next thing I know, the cats are being brought inside, and they became pets, not doing anything for mice. Well, one day, luckily, none of us were around, so I couldn't even be blamed for this one, because normally, I think there was a little bit about something I had to do with how the garage door closed. But somehow, my wife accidentally caught one of the cats in the garage door.
They would lay on top of, when the garage is open and the vehicle is parked in the garage, they would jump on the garage, or jump on the vehicle, and then jump up on top of the garage and lay on top of the garage.
The garage door.
Yeah.
So when the door came down, it caught the cat, and she didn't know it. And everyone was gone, and then so the cat was, when she came home, was still there, and it was kind of a horrible scene. But Zeus was his name.
R.I.P. Zeus.
Had met his demise because Karen did it. I mean, that's all there is to it.
And he's asking to get put on the porch.
So
Apple 27 TCJ. Hey, fellas, first week in November did not disappoint. Had 4 separate encounters with Murph, but I couldn't get him to stop. Bucks were cruising all day, arguably one of the best weekends I've had in the tree. I've got some vacation coming up, so I'll be back out this weekend. Hopefully the next update will be a good one. Thanks, fellas, and happy hunting. And A Mart's 94 says, I wish your episode about buck fever came out a week sooner. Last Friday, November 1st, I took the whole day off of work. About 10:30, the biggest buck of my life walked out following a doe. I took a video of him, and he eventually came into range at 30 yards. I had my pin on him, pulled back, and I just froze up. I couldn't shoot. I was shaking so much. I've been kicking myself in the man ever since. I sent Easton a video of said deer on Facebook. Thank you, David, Warren, and Easton. Adrian Martinez.
Well,
Thank you, buddy.
I do hope that means that will help a lot of people. That it'll be something they'll carry on next year.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you have to learn to control it. You have to, or you're just going to miss those opportunities, But at the same time, just think about how awesome it was to feel that out of control.
Oh, yeah.
Because what else does that? There isn't anything.
Probably finding an 80.
Maybe.
I would hope that doesn't get you going that much.
Dude, I'm not even kidding. I borderline think I might honestly enjoy shed hunting more than deer hunting.
Yeah, that's wild. That makes zero sense to me. But anyway,
I thought he was going to say like certain kind of drug probably would, but that isn't the case. I've tried them.
Good Lord. Oh, boy.
Okay,
I have a story. Yep, I do. Hello, all. Last year was one of the best hunting seasons I had to date. We have a 60-acre leased ground in south-central Illinois surrounded by ag fields. The weekend before our gun season opener, we all hit the woods hoping to get something with our bows. My dad, sitting 50 yards away from me down a creek, saw a decent buck and decided to pass as he didn't want to take a chance and wound a mature buck. Unfortunately, he was unable to see him again, and a group of does came by and he took his first shot on a deer in over 23 years. Wow. I gave him some crap about not shooting the big buck he saw, but he wanted me to have the opportunity. That next week, with my grandpa's 45-70, Illinois' first year of allowing us to use straight wall cartridges, that same buck walked in 5 minutes into shooting light, about 10 yards away from my rub tree that had buck junkie on it. Knowing this was a good deer, I shot him, and he dropped right there. On the opposite side of the property, I heard another shot about a minute later, and I get the phone call of my dad saying he shot another doe. As I had to break the news, I shot the deer he saw last week. We scored the deer at 134 and an eighth, 6.5-year-old tank, in the biggest buck I've ever shot to date. Listening to the podcast and using your scents have helped so much. Since using your products, I have seen more deer and more confidence in the woods. Thank you all, and God bless. Justin Gray.
That's awesome.
You the man.
Congrats.
Yeah,
Congrats,
Justin.
Awesome.
You don't have to break the news to your dad. He passed it so you could shoot it.
Yeah.
All you got to do is tell him. He'd be pumped, I'm sure. That's pretty freaking cool, though.
Really cool. Really cool, man.
Must be nice having a dad that'll do that for you.
Very few am I going to pass so that he can kill them. Now I will.
Totally joking.
I would take them before and not carry my bow. Last week I put my bow up, and Warren hasn't been able to hunt much, so I said, "Just bring your bow." And that wasn't even last week. That was Monday, wasn't it, or Sunday?
I can't say much. I've had the opportunity, not that I've gotten them because I was a young idiot, but to shoot at least 2 off the top of my head I can think of, 2 bucks that I had the green light on that ended up going over 170. So. Juice was one.
Yes, but he went 170 at the time.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying that ended up going 170. Juice was one. Ralph was already there, but that one wasn't. We were good. Anybody could have shot him.
Right.
The other one was Cage. Cage, I almost shot at freaking 10, 15 yards.
Are you sure it wasn't Chunky Monkey?
No, that one I got full drawn on the same day.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if he went 170 or not, because we never see him again?
Yeah, he got killed, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Same with Cage. Cage disappeared after me and
Cage
you
was big.
Well, not the year. He almost shot him.
You guys saw him the next year, didn't you?
Yeah, the next year is when I almost shot him, and Warren talked me out of it. And then we never saw him again. And
that
would have been.
At that time,
we
we had a high survival rate on that place, though.
Yeah,
but now it's not so much.
But that year I passed 3 booners. I've never had a year since. I don't know that I passed another booner since that year.
Who? Cage?
Cage, the 12 at the 80 with Colby. And I can't remember who the third one was, but there was 3 that year, and I'm trying to remember who it was.
There an 11 that you were?
I don't know. I have to think about it. But, I mean, it was kind of that is not normal that we pass on.
Do you think the 12 was a booner?
Oh, yeah. You go back and score that deer. Yeah, I came up with like 174. No, I mean, he won't like fly past it, but 172 to 174.
I'm trying to think if I've ever passed one.
I definitely haven't.
M2. I think M2 probably was that year.
Not a chance.
He was probably booner. Past him. I think there's some others, but I can't. I'm having a hard time thinking of them.
Well, I passed
Warren
one.
passed an opportunity on a 200-plus inch deer.
Well, he was too far.
Yeah, it was too far. Late muzzleloader was
Another-
not a thing. We've never had that big of a deer, and this random deer just showed up, and Warren's like, "Holy cow, we're going!" And we were sitting in some crap to go try to shoot this thing. He did come out. It was pretty cool to see him.
Yeah, he's huge.
He was very large.
The
But the worst
largest
part-
deer that I've ever passed, though, was the one in Canada.
Yeah, with
he's
Mom.
a 180-plus inch deer.
Yeah.
They figured he had 28-inch main beams.
Dad passed him because he didn't want to shoot him with a muzzleloader. I don't say that with, like, attitude, because I probably would have done the same thing. But I think a lot of people would tell you you're freaking nuts.
Yeah, but my whole thing was that I went there to try to see if I could kill one with my bow in super frigid temperatures.
Yeah.
Minus 18 is what and so that was my goal. Well, if I shoot it with a muzzleloader, yeah, I kill a big deer, but I don't even get to attempt my goal.
Yeah.
And
the reason Mom had a muzzleloader, Mom had shot her buck.
Yes, she had already killed her buck, and then
they were
this one
sitting
came
there,
in.
That
And
one came in. Yep.
yeah, I was eating a cookie, and I looked up, and I'm
He's
like,
coming-
oh, no.
He's coming to get a bite.
The giant is here, and there was no doubt when
Why
I
didn't you
walked
bring
in.
your bow?
It would have been too far. It was like 50 yards.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been helpful.
Now, I ended up killing a 167-inch
Yeah,
deer that I thought I shot a 145.
That deer was gorgeous.
I mean, because like I said, I was just trying to kill a buck with my bow in super frigid temperatures.
You smoked him, dude.
I did. I made a good shot. But the whole time I saw the deer, I was on my knees for 3 hours in the snow because he put the blind in after the snow was there. And I knelt down in there, and then the buck just kept going back and forth, chasing does. And I'd get ready to get back in my chair, and here he'd come again. And it just never happened. And I couldn't get up. I had knelt down for so long that I couldn't sit back up. Mom had to help me roll over on my side. It was not a good deal. But anyhow, I mean, you talk about like sometimes you have ground shrinkage. I had way ground growage. I walked up there and I was like, oh, yeah, this deer is bigger than we thought, Karen. This is awesome. And I grabbed a hold of him and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This deer's like
really big.
Way bigger than I thought. And he ended up being 167.
Yeah, he's a big deer.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyhow, those were the good old days. Now I'm shooting the broken horn, beat up old warriors missing an eye and that kind of. We're trying to kill Mr. Liss, who's going to next year we're going to kill him because we're going to take his cane away.
Good Lord.
He's going to be limping. All right. Do we want to? Who wants? I've been going first every time on the update. So why don't someone else go first?
I've had actually some updates for you guys. I've actually had 2 shooters now. For you, I went and sat that same spot the other night where I had a shooter come in, and he came in at dark, and when I ranged him, not him, but where he was at, it was pitch dark, so obviously your rangefinder probably ain't going to be all that accurate. And I ranged it. It was like 45 or 52 is what I kept getting. Me and Nick went and sat there the other day, and I ranged where he was at. It's impossible for him to be over 40 from where he was at. So he was probably 38, 39, and just came in at dark. Oh.
That sucks.
He was a tanker. But no, I've...
well, if it tells you how dark it was, though, after they came by, I asked him, I said, where are they? He's like, they're already way out in the field.
So, yeah, he said, where do you still see them? I was like, yeah, they're gone. No, my update, though, I mean, I've been bouncing quite a bit, bouncing around. The one buck that I'd been chasing early, we hadn't seen him since October 13th. And we've found 2 or 3 large deer or mature deer dead right now.
Dead.
One of them is being tested for EHD, so I'm going to. I think that's what's going to come back on that one. But just we don't know why some of these other ones have died. So we weren't sure if that's what happened to old Gump Baby. But he showed up the other day. on November 4th, chasing a doe. So he's back on the table. And then the 2 bucks that me and Warren has kind of put me on that I've been chasing. One is RJ that we're talking about. And I've got history with his dad, who is not a fun deer. His name is Ralph. Was Ralph. That's the freaking, we should have named him Einstein. That's what deer that was. And then there's a freaking gnarly 8 that me and Warren have been running after. And I got him at 30 yards and could not shoot him. And then the next 2 days after that was RJ at 40 yards.
Why couldn't you shoot him?
Because we were sitting in a saddle. And so the tree that we had to get in, we had one tree. Like, there was no option. And the tree we got in, I was like, oh, this is going to suck to get in, number one. Number two, I'm going to have to cut like no other. So there is video. I'm still tied into the tree because I could. My rope was long enough, but I had to step into the big limb that's next to me to reach out and cut a couple lanes for myself. And I cut 3 pretty big lanes. And there was only one spot that if he came in, like, up above us, out further in the field, it was going to be right at the top of the lane where I wasn't going to be able to shoot. I was like, if he comes to that point, there's 2 other lanes here that I would have a hard time believing you're not going to get a shot in. And sure enough, he freaking came out, and he's at 31, but I can't shoot up in the crap. And so I figured he would come down, and he actually turned around and act like he actually stood at 31 yards feeding and on the edge of my last lane that I had cut. And if he would have, and he was turned around like he was going to come over and check the scrape out or something next to us. And I was like, oh, it was literally one step. If you took one more step back towards us, you would have had an arrow right through him, but he did not do it. So very close. Since then, I have not seen either of them. That was probably only 3-4 days ago. So that was exciting. They've been with does. I know that. Been seeing them. Those 2 have been kind of interesting to watch because I've seen both of them without a doe and also been able to know within like a couple hours of when they've gotten a doe. And so then you can't really predict when they're going to break from their doe, but if you imagine like that 24 to 36 hours, if not 3 days is what they'll do sometimes, right?
Yeah, up to 72 hours.
I always do like give them 2 days.
Yeah, 48 hours.
And so waiting on those little turds to break out again, see where they go.
It seems long to me.
I feel like I don't see them all that long. Like 3 days, I don't know if I've ever seen them. But there's no way to know, I guess.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that they have figured all that on pen-raised deer. And I see them stay with them and don't leave them and stay right there and keep breeding. And
because I always think it's about a day or 2 is what.
Why would they need to wait that long? Because they're about to come into heat and they're waiting for them to come into heat?
I think it's a combination. One is they're with her before she comes into heat. They want to be right there ready. And then number 2, once she is ready, they breed more than once. So he'll keep breeding her because that's the other thing. That's what they will tell you is that a lot can happen where a buck breed, let's just say, your target deer is the one that's with it, but someone else is more. They don't have to be a bigger antler deer. They could just be a meaner deer. But say your deer breeds that doe, but then big boy finds out that he comes in and runs them off, and then he breeds it. That doe can actually have a fawn from both, 2 separate fawns. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, if I understand correctly, I think a dog can do the same thing.
From their, I would imagine it'd have to be like they know they're close. Like their interdigital gland will tell them that. Like when they're smelling, they'll know the difference between one that's in heat or one that's close to being in heat or one that's not at all.
Right.
So I'd imagine that if they find one that's close, they're gonna be sticking right with her.
Yep.
So what stage would you say we're in right now?
I think we're right in the middle of that.
Right in the peak of the rut.
Yeah.
I mean, I think our deer have been breeding for a couple weeks now, 10 days or more. We actually. One of our videographers, Eli, has got some pornography that he acquired the other day of a buck on top of a doe. And I saw the same thing on my way home that same day. Wasn't the same deer.
You just weren't perverted enough to take a picture.
I didn't video him. I'm not a voyeur, or, I didn't want to watch him. I just drove on by and left him to do his thing.
Their privacy.
Yeah, I mean, he was, but then again, he was he must have been because he was doing it 30 yards off the road in the middle of a field. So
I want everybody to see.
Yeah. So anyhow, I think that's where our deer are at right now. It's the peak of the rut, I would say 2 days ago was the morning that Nick and I saw like 10 bucks. And it all started with a spike chasing a doe around. And he just kept chasing her in circles and circles all around. I'm like, heck yeah, she's laying down scent everywhere. And sure enough, buck after buck started showing up. And they're all checking it. Just wasn't any bucks that were older. The oldest deer we had, I think, is 3.
Yep.
And that was that 10 that's like 145. He's a beautiful deer. I mean, those make our hard passes sometimes,
Perfectly symmetrical, too.
But when you're trying to, even though we don't own big chunks of ground, we are trying to manage our deer in areas where we feel like we can and get them to 5. We have some areas where we'll shoot them at 4 because we don't feel like we can wait till 5. There's just too much pressure around us. But this deer, I feel like he's staying between the chunk of ground we're hunting and another neighbor that works with us. And so I think hopefully he'll make it. Beautiful deer. Man, he's a cool deer. So anyhow, that's kind of where I think that the rut is full swing right now. You're either in them or you're not. Evenings, my thought process is stay close to food because the does are coming to the food and the bucks are going to be there. Now they're checking everybody. And at the same time, what are we on the 14th? I don't want to say we're there. We're not yet where there's a shortage of does, but it should start to be more
you have to look a
little harder. Like I saw a buck on my way in this afternoon or late this morning, and they were just walking up the creek bank.
I think that it's going to be a little bit later for when they start having to find does, just because it seems like everything's been pushed
kind of
back
been about
5
or 6 days. Yeah, I would agree with that. That the Midwest, if you guys are experiencing what we're experiencing in Iowa, I don't know whether it's weather. They can't push it back too far because the does have to have those fawns at a certain time. But it definitely seems like, well, what we said was not necessarily was it that the rut was pushed back, but our pre-rut just didn't seem to exist. We kind of skipped that phase. We went from like shooting does and we're seeing some deer and everything, and we would see some bucks on trail camera at night, and then all of a sudden they were breeding. Yep. It just kind of happened overnight. And that was as early as October 31st. If I remember right, Joey's the one
November 2nd.
Oh, it was November 2nd when he saw it? Okay, so that's 12 days, that we have confirmed sightings of breeding deer. So, but we have a couple things. Did you want to talk about, did you have anything to add to where we're at on that or anything like that, or no?
No, not really.
Warren's seen the same amount of shooters I have in 4 days or whatever you've hunted.
Yeah, I haven't really been
conveniently
out, so.
Being the one that we're both running after.
Well, I should make mention that we did see one of our shooters the other day, and Nick screwed it up. We had Patch coming right at us, and yeah, but Nick's not much of a hunter, and we way better behind the camera. But that day we had him where he had his bow in his hand because we were hoping that this deer would show up, and sure enough, he walked out, started across the field, and I don't know, Nick like waved at him or something like, "Good to see you," And
I don't take Nick's side all that often, but if you guys got winded, I'm betting that you were the problem.
Yeah. Your freaking butt. Yeah.
Oh, this morning I could have set a record. I thought Nick can vouch. Had there been a doe within 200 yards, she'd have heard it. Because not only was it very, very loud, it was long. Like it was like the dirt bike.
Yeah.
It was, it kind of peaked, it crescendoed.
What's our topic?
All right, so this gentleman, and I can read. This is from Tommy Hall because he asked, "Hey guys, I have a question related to land management. How much is too much? What I mean by that is I have a 160-acre lease. For the past 5 years, the back 80 acres has not been hunted, and the old logging roads that have always been open have grown over. The front 80 has been hunted religiously for the past 20 years, mostly during Minnesota rifle season, but there has been some archery hunting sprinkled in there. I started sharing this lease 2 years ago. I am the new hunter to the lease, and I'm looking to reopen the trails on the back 80. I recently walked back there and found major mature buck sign. This makes sense because although I get many deer on camera in the front 80, the only time I have gotten mature bucks on camera was at 11 p.m. or later. If I go and reopen the back 80 this winter, will the mature bucks just go and find somewhere else that there is no human pressure to live? For context, I hunt northern Minnesota, and it's all hardwood, timber with very little agriculture around. There is moderate hunting pressure around us, lots of public land. Thanks for the insight, and you guys have an awesome podcast going." So I wrote him an answer because I wanted to write down what I was thinking when he asked me. But I definitely think that I'd like to get everyone's input.
So is this a land management question or a pressure question?
I think it's a pressure question.
Okay.
I think he's just trying to decide whether should they mess with that other 80-acre piece.
Yeah.
Period. And so one of my recommendations is possibly I would look at maybe putting a food plot in somewhere, a small one, a half acre or an acre, because he's saying there's not much agriculture around. That could help keep some of the mature bucks there. But at the same time, if those deer are targeting that 80-acre chunk to bed there, I wouldn't mess that up too much. I might go in there and hang some stands in strategic places, but I don't know that I would be. We have certain pieces that we hunt that are even smaller than 80 acres where we just don't go in there. We leave it alone because once those, especially the mature bucks, find a place that they feel comfortable where they can go lay down during the day and maybe even get up and walk around and check does comfortably without feeling like there's a lot of pressure going on there, then they'll continue to come back there. My answer to him was, I think I would definitely be trying to hunt that other 80-acre piece, but I don't know that I would be messing with it too much. Going in and clearing a logging road that was in there previously, I don't think that's going to hurt him. And that's going to, matter of fact, it's going to allow him the access to get back in there without making tons of noise and that kind of thing. I wouldn't do that right now. I would wait till season's over and then go in and clear it.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that it's 80 acres. That's a pretty big chunk. I mean, you're not.
Well, it's 160 total.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking that even if they are using that area for bedding, it ain't all 80 acres.
Right.
And so what I had answered him a little bit too, but in my opinion, if it is the main bedding where it's super thick or something, or they just really like to be in there, I'd still avoid that specific area, but I'd also be trying to figure out where that specific area is, because it ain't just the whole 80 acres. It'll be somewhere more condensed, I would think. And then I would 100% be hunting it, because all I would be focusing on is access, number one, to make sure you're not walking through all the crap to get in there, because that adds pressure. And then number two, sitting somewhere where you're not also right in the center of it, but get back in there to where you can have some bucks chasing around and stuff where you're closer to the bedding. I wouldn't be just, I guess if I have a 160 acre lease, I'm using the 160 acres. I mean, I'm not going to just section off 80 acres of it. I'm going to figure out how to hunt it and how to hunt it without pressure. And I don't think that going to cut a road or two in there or whatever after the season and then you hunting it safely, as far as not just going in there all the time, I don't think that you're going to really affect much of what the mature bucks are doing that are in there right now. Obviously, that is, depending on how much you do it, is going to be how much pressure you're putting on them.
I think there's two ways that you can kill big deer, and two styles, I guess. I'm sure there's way more than that, but two that come to my top of my head is you can either do one where you try to manipulate everything to get the deer to do what you want to do, or you can do two where you figure out what the deer likes to do, what they want to do, and then you capitalize on them doing what they want to do. In my opinion, what he's just told me is the deer want to be back there. They like it how it is. They're already there. You said there's lots of sign. So one, I'm not gonna put a food plot in. I'm not gonna mess with it, because I already know there's deer there and they're liking it and they're showing me sign. And then I'm going to hunt it. I may not try to get right in the guts of it, but I want to be as close to the guts of it as I can, because that's gonna majority of the time where I believe that your big deer are gonna be. Now I'm not gonna be in there on October 15th. Unless I have some kind of information that's telling me that there's a deer I'm trying to kill that I think I can capitalize on it. But I try to get up in their grill. I know a lot of guys, and I think, in my opinion, people get too paranoid about the pressure aspect, like so paranoid that they never even give themselves an opportunity to kill a deer, because they're hoping that deer is going to do something so crazy that they don't ever get close to them, and in reality, you're just not where they're at or where they want to be. And I do think that you have to be careful, because I think that you start putting too much pressure on there, and you're going to change it, and they're going to sense that. So you got to be, and pressure, in my opinion, I think there's another thing I've learned paying attention this year. In my opinion, pressure means any time that you were in there where a deer could detect you, that you were there or that you are there. Meaning, they're smelling that you were there the day before, and they're not used to ever smelling a human back there, in my opinion, that is still some level of pressure. And so I think you have to be cautious of that, because that's going to affect those deer. So in my opinion, I'd absolutely be hunting it, but I wouldn't be changing anything. I'd be careful on how would get in there, and I'd be selective on the days. And I'd be watching, just taking note of the amount of deer that I see, what I'm seeing going on, and is that changing as the more times that I hunt it? Is it starting to go down? Because that may be an indicator that, okay, now you're putting a little too much pressure on it.
Mm-hmm.
See, I think the third one I like your analogy of there's two different ways, but there's a combination of that. That would be a third one. And that combination, see, I would put a food plot in, maybe put it on the 80 acres that's in front. Now, I don't know how this lays. If I could put a food plot in where I had access, that the wind's in my favor, like for an evening, for evenings, where I could access and sit on that food plot and know that the bedding is just right there. And now I've got everything they need. I would feel like I could possibly hold those deer, not all the time on 160 acres, but more. And so if I could do something like that, and all you would be giving up, let's just say you put a half-acre food plot on 160 acres, I would compare it to our 80-acre piece where we have a 2-acre food plot, and it's really close to bedding. And it's fantastic in the afternoons. It's a little tough in the mornings. And the other thing is, it's not ideal for accessing. You know, if I had not knowing enough about his property, if you had the ideal access, I think that could be a stellar setup, you know, because you would make it where those deer would not have to go 200, 300 yards off of the food source and bed down, and they're just staying there, you know. Yeah. So each piece of property is going to you have to look at it and see whether that fits. Because when you find the right one, it's unbelievable how well it can work.
Yeah, I'd be more interested in, personally, I would rather hunt it for a year, kind of understand what they do, and then
Absolutely.
I would decide on if I'm going to put a food plot in or where.
Right. No.
Fair enough.
Any other comments or anything like that? So, hey guys, the more of you out there that have situations like that, we don't get to all of them, and we apologize. We get too many that come in that we can't take every single one and put it into the podcast, but this one was pretty well described in what he was looking for, so I felt like it was definitely worthy of that. The next one is, I'm not going to use the person's name because it's a situation, and I think that one brings up what we go back to trail cameras and cellular cameras, and I mean, we're going to create some hate mail probably, but that's okay. I have an opinion on it, and it's my opinion. You won't change my mind. I can promise you that. And that is, so this person that wrote in, they had this situation where they had a buck that they knew. They had trail cameras out. They had a deer that they knew pretty well, and they were hunting. And next door neighbor, I don't know if it's next door neighbor or a neighbor, but someone was basically sitting at home watching a football game. They get a message on their phone that the cellular camera just gone off and this buck is out in the hayfield. They grab their crossbow, run outside, and go over and shoot the buck. And so they used real-time information from that cellular camera to go out and kill that deer. In my opinion, we've eliminated the hunting aspect of killing that deer. And that's what I don't like about cellular cameras. I think cellular cameras have a place, and I think for those guys that are using them to go distances when you have a lease or a place to hunt that's 2 hours away and can't go there all the time, you got a spot where you don't want to go in and out because you're going to bump the deer and you're getting that intel without having to go in there. I think cellular cameras work great in that situation. I think the moment that we start using cellular cameras for right now data so that we can make a change, get out of a tree and go get in another tree because he just walked by there or something like that, now we've gone too far. And I don't agree with it. And if that were the case, that they told me, well, either you're going to be with them or without them, I would be without them then, because to me that eliminates the hunting aspect. But that again is just my opinion. Your guys' opinion.
I agree.
Well, so
using it to go walk outside and shoot the thing is not the intent of them. So basically everything you just said, I'm on board with.
So how do we think most people are using them?
I think I don't know how most people are. I mean, I know a lot of
they
people
get
are doing
pictures and
what we
look
were
at their
talking about.
pictures.
Yeah, that just like a regular trail camera, except for they don't have to go check the card. You know, you say, okay, hey, look, that buck's moving. The other thing is it can tell you that deer are on their feet while you're sitting in your stand. You're like, okay, cool deal. Put your phone back in your pocket, and you know that maybe there's a good chance a deer might come by here.
Krista.
So you don't think, though, that the majority of people that get a picture of a deer at a certain time aren't utilizing that information on their very next sit?
They are, but that's not a very next sit. Isn't
Yeah,
the
that's
same
not
thing as
real time.
literally going out there
Let's say it
while
was
the
at
deer is
4
there.
a.m.
What?
Well, now you know where that deer was at 4 in the morning.
It's a huge upper hand, but the fact of being able to access that within the same time the deer is there is no.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't agree with that either. I don't think that that's it's not how I believe that they should be utilized, but I think that that's the majority of how they already are utilized. I think we've already talked about this before, that's just how I think that's why the deer in Iowa aren't the same caliber as they are or as they used to be. Is because I think that now the people's efficiency in killing deer is so much higher because of cell cams. They give you such relevant information, even outside of just live data. I mean, you could have, when guys are, especially when they start hunting a lot, there's maybe places where they didn't check for a week or two, and there was a deer there the whole time that they didn't know about, that now they know right away that it's there. As far as, I use cheater cams. I got several cheater cameras. I don't really utilize them to hunt. I have them on scrapes and things like that to try to get pictures. And then you can, like, we had one die the other day, and Alyssa was like, should I go put a battery in it? And she was going to go hunting that next day or two, and I told her, no, don't go put a battery in it. Not for thinking about the camera, more so because I'm like, it's not worth messing with any deer. I already know there's deer there that we would shoot. And so that's, when I'm approaching a place, once I know that there's a deer there that I'm shooting, I'm not really that concerned about the cameras. Because I've already learned if you try to do that, it doesn't work. That you're going to end up chasing your tail. And if you're waiting till you get a picture of them there, you are behind the curve, in my opinion. You need to know and understand where they're going to go, and you got to be there before they do it. But I don't know, I guess, just because we don't agree with it. I mean, it's still legal and everything, so I don't really know what that's going to change. That's why I was really excited about Iowa possibly banning all cameras completely on public, because I'm not even kidding. I would be spending the majority of my time on public in about 2 years, because I think you'd have way bigger deer there than you would anywhere else.
Well, and we may see that. I do think that it will get to a point if we continue to go this way, because the other one that I was going to bring up that's a very similar topic is I've had more than one person now send in drone footage of deer they've shot. And I don't know what states they were in
Wounded deer, right?
Wounded deer, yeah. You know, and one they recovered by doing it, another one they did not. They actually were able to go back and check on the deer and kept up with him for like 3 days, and he lived, you know, or he was alive after 3 days. At some point, we are going to take technology and it's going to override what it takes to hunt, to do the hunting, to find the animal and all that. And then I think you will see the government will step in and say, it's now too far. You guys have too much of an advantage, and they will take it. And the problem, like you said, is how do you take a part of it away and not the whole thing? It'll be like what Arizona and some of the other states have done, where they just say no trail cameras. Now, granted, they'll probably have to do it on public land. It would be hard to say on, I don't know. I don't see why they couldn't do it on private too. They just wouldn't be able to check it.
I think that's going to be really hard for them to ever get through.
I do too, because I think the trail camera industry is a big moneymaker.
Oh, I think your cell cam companies now, you're talking probably, they got to be hundreds of millions.
I would think. I even used the number I used with Easton, that the total trail camera business might be $1 billion industry.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, because you're also
that's
talking
wild.
I don't know.
Hundreds of millions, I could see. Billions is.
Well, I think the only way you could get it to billions would be through
all the plans.
Subscriptions. Yeah,
that's what I mean. All the data plans.
Yeah, that would probably be the only way. But I mean, I think that you're going to see companies willing to spend a ton of money
to fight it.
Yeah. So I think that I think it'll be difficult to ever see that happen. personally. I'd be fine with it. I'd be A-okay with it, but I don't know that one's going to be super, super difficult to battle. I'd be really curious to see if you could find a time that, like, when cell cams really took off, when they, like, got affordable to the masses and then everybody started using them, because I feel like it's still only been the last 4 or 5 years that all of a sudden now they were $120 and they were affordable. The average guy could buy cell cams, because before they were like $500-$600. What happened to success rates?
I don't know.
If you went back and looked at just the success rates overall in the States, I mean, obviously there's tons of other factors. Maybe you had EHD or something that could affect it, but overall, can you see a direct correlation in the amount of deer that people are killing once cell cams got really popular?
Well, it would be really interesting, honestly, to go back, because I can remember before trail cameras, period. You know, I had the first D-cell trail cameras, and the same conversation, there was no podcast then, but the same conversations were going on. This is going to change hunting, because now someone's going to know that deer is out there, you know, and just getting a trail camera photo. So there was a huge advantage the moment the camera started. I will be the very first one to admit, if they banned all trail cameras, I would be like hating life. I love checking my trail cameras. I probably have learned more about deer from my cameras than anywhere else. It's been like a huge library of information, because we can test things and then and remove ourselves from that situation, so we're not there to bother it and see what's going on a rub tree, on a scrape, on a trail, on a food plot. Where if you're there, then there's always that human element that could be affecting what you're trying to capture. And you wouldn't get it at night. We don't have cameras that can go and film everything going on at night. So it's been a huge learning curve. That would hurt. I would hate that, you know. But at the same time, if they told me in order to stop the deer from being killed, at real-time information being transferred to get that deer killed, if it was going to save them, I'd give up my trail camera.
I would be super stoked if they got rid of trail cameras. I'm telling you, I think the deer that you would see would be unbelievable, which I know there's a lot of guys that say, well, people aren't going to know what's out there, so they're just going to start shooting the first deer that they see. Yeah, probably. But now they didn't kill the 3-year-old that was 165.
Oh, they
didn't know about him.
3-year-old that's 165.
Yeah, but I think the amount of ones that they're not going to know about, that they didn't even know was there, that they're going to slip through the cracks. They're just going to be, you're going to just have more deer get away than the right deer than would have before, and you're going to have some just absolute giants.
All right, have we ever done a poll, like through the podcast? I would love to hear what our viewers, because I kind of agree with what you're saying. That would be cool, because I remember back when I sat in a tree, and I didn't live in Iowa at the time, so I knew I didn't have the chance of something like what you can in Iowa walk by. You know, but I knew I had a chance always to see a big deer, even in Virginia, Arkansas, Montana. But now would be, so which way would you, if you were going into the future, if the next 10 years of your bow hunting could be with trail cameras or without trail cameras, which way would you pick?
Let's go to the big buck topic real quick, though. So let's say that, take all of our deer in all of our places right now, and let's just imagine we had no cameras and didn't know any of them for years, or know any of them from cameras. Does what you're going to shoot change?
No.
Well,
why
you don't think so? At
No.
all?
Why? I don't. As far as like maybe a specific deer or something.
So you have
caliber,
no idea on any of them. So, like, I would bet you, like, if Wampy, right now I would tell you I'm not going to shoot Wampy, because I know exactly what Wampy is, and I know exactly how old he is and everything else. If I didn't know Wampy from cameras in prior years, and I had Wampy walking in person, I would shoot Wampy. Mm-hmm. And that's where I guess my point is that now maybe RJ makes it one more year. Or because I think what you're going to shoot is going to change, because you got to keep in mind you're probably not going to know the ages near as well. Right? Because aging them on the hoof is going to be super difficult. You're not going to have any idea of where they spend the majority of their time. And then the amount of new deer that you're probably going to see, because you didn't know they were there before, is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't. Besides knowing like an age or passing, honestly, I think that I would have more opportunities without cameras because I wouldn't feel guilty about shooting a 3-year-old that's 160 because I'd be like, I don't know how old he is. I'm shooting.
that's what I think.
So I don't think it would change. It'd still be hunting the caliber of deer I'm trying to hunt.
But then Gump makes another year.
And I guess I'm not connecting what you're.
If you're tagged right now,
Yeah.
right, before you would shoot Gump right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's his ceiling. It's as big as he could get. Where if all of a sudden now you shoot this 160-inch 3-year-old because you didn't know about Gump, or you weren't able to get there,
And Gump
now,
lives another year. Yeah.
and then Gump does what he could possibly do. Now all of a sudden you have
That's
a mega giant. You
This
see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but it's the same exact thing as what we're already doing. It
Yeah,
doesn't
but
change
however,
I think it does change,
you
'cause
also
I
are
think-
you're gonna have a lot. I still say that 3 years old is, and Nick and I were talking about that in the tree earlier because a neighbor texted me this morning, and a deer that we know is 3 years old, he had him where he could have shot him this morning, and because I had told him that we had passed that deer, he passed him, but he was telling me how I honestly don't know if he actually passed him or he was like trying to confirm what was going on, and he didn't get a shot.
What deer?
The 14.
Dynamite.
I guarantee it.
Oh,
No, I sent him the 14, and he said that's not that deer. He'd seen that deer, but dynamite. And if you didn't know,
You went all the way over there?
Mhm.
That's terrifying.
Yes. And so anyhow, this deer shows up, and I know this deer is 3 years old. I'm 100% positive, not from trail cameras. I mean, I confirmed it on trail cameras, but I saw him on the hoof last year, and he had broken off half of his rack, and he's a little tiny deer. I mean, he was just a 2-year-old here. You can tell. 1 and 2-year-olds easy. 3 and 4, they start getting a little harder to, if you didn't know the deer, and he just shows up. So a lot of your 3-year-olds without cameras get shot. And I believe that long-term effect, you might not grow as many of those. I think it can go both ways. More of them get through because 3-year-olds are getting killed, and the 4-year-old made it now, or the 5-year-old. But 3 years old, without a doubt, in Iowa, in my opinion, is the most crucial year for any buck that has any capability of growing a big rack, because he'll already show signs of it by the time he's 3. He'll already be a decent deer, and most people will shoot him, and that's when they are so susceptible because they don't get to just go in and own a place. The other bucks are running them off, and so like what Dynamite's doing, he's showing up all these other places now because he's getting run off, and he won't have a place to live. Gun season will roll around, and there'll be people that go through someplace and they may catch him. But if he figures out the place to hide during that gun season and what goes on during this bow season, if he makes it to 4, that's when I feel like our deer they got something on us. They're like, okay, I kind of know how this works now. I take my ass over to this little chunk because there was nobody over there, and I hide for a little while, and then I pop back out. And, I mean, that's what the Big 8 was doing, and he had figured it out.
mm-hmm.
Him and Splits both. I mean, those deer had figured out that 80-acre piece, they could come out there and feed in a food plot at 2:30 in the afternoon during the heart of the gun season. They were walking around in a food plot and not worried at all.
Yeah.
And then they would go back where they used to live once everything cooled off.
Yep.
I guess I'll be the odd one out. I don't think it's going to change that much, or would change that much as far as trail cameras go. That same dude you're talking about doesn't run a single trail camera.
Right.
So he doesn't have any clue. He's just going to shoot whatever, and I think that's how it already is. I mean, I don't think it's as popular as people, or as all the podcasts, including us and everybody else, talks about passing deer, passing this, trying to grow them. I don't think it's nearly as popular to the average hunter.
Or probable.
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot of them are shooting anyways.
I agree with you.
And I don't think that there's a trail camera that's going to save that 3-year-old because the dude saw him. So I guess I'll be the odd one out and think they're already getting shot and hammered. It's just a matter of if you get lucky that he slips by everybody else that's hunting or whatever else.
How much easier do you think it makes it, though, when they know that he's there?
As far as what? Like,
if they didn't know that 3-year-old existed before,
yeah.
are they going to wait for that 3-year-old, or then another one that's 140 is getting shot?
I don't think it matters what deer shows up. I think they're going to shoot no matter what, whether they have it on camera or not. If it shows up, the amount of identification out there as well, like seeing a deer on the hoof versus a camera, that they are like, oh, that's him. They're shooting the first deer that has a good frame that is similar or is like, oh, that's a good deer. I'm going to shoot that one. So I don't think it matters whether they've seen him or not. And a lot of times, I can't tell you how many times people will message us saying they thought they shot this one, and then they got to and like, oh, we figured out later it wasn't the same deer. And so they're not identifying the deer properly anyways with the cameras already.
Well, because you could flip what you said, and I'm not denying what the way you're talking about could be, but you could flip that and say the trail cameras are saving more deer because guys do know them, and so there are some people out there going, because would I have shot a different deer if I didn't know, like Dynamite, when he walks out, would I have shot him if I didn't know that he was there? Hopefully,
no way. You see that deer and you're like, oh wow,
because his
neck is freaking like a little
that's
fawn.
what I'm saying. So I'm looking at him and I'm going, he's one I could feel like I could age him pretty well. But I'm also at a different place in my hunting than a lot of people are. I've been doing this for over 40 years. And so but when I was your age, and I mean, no way, I'm killing that deer. I mean, he's got a whole bunch of points. I'm putting him on my wall.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not hesitating at all. Camera or no camera, it didn't matter. So I think that I agree with Easton. I agree with both of you. There's not really a win here. There's not a absolute, other than absolutely I am against real-time information being used from a trail camera to kill a deer. I don't like it at all. I'm not going to bash anyone for doing it because it is legal. But I won't do it because it would take away the hunting aspect for me.
It's pretty simple not to tempt yourself. I mean, in all reality, if you're putting a camera within 100 yards of your house or wherever you're spending the majority of your time, that's a cell cam, you're setting it up right there so that you know that they're freaking right there right away. Any of the cameras right now, it doesn't matter where I'm at, any of the cell cams that I have out right now, if I get a picture of a big deer on it, there ain't no there could be a shot that I get in there in some stand somewhere nearby or whatever and could get a shot at him, but there is no just walking over, he's still going to be within 50 yards. I'll get to him kind of thing.
I think that's still real-time information pretty much, though. I
can see what you're saying is
you get a picture
if you're there within an hour
or even that afternoon. If
you
know that if you have a travel corridor or something, that deer went in there in the morning during daylight, then there's certain places where I know, like if I knew that he was in there in the morning, I'd at Bullwinkle, for instance. If he was in there in the morning, almost every single time, we didn't have a cell cam at the time, I just had a regular trail camera, but every single time he was there in the morning, he was usually also there in the afternoon. And if you had a picture, you're going there now in the afternoon. So to me, that's almost, it may not be walking out the door and shooting them, but it's still pretty relative information.
Yeah.
I think and this is why I don't have one there. The Southwest Scrape, okay? If I had a trail camera, a cellular camera sitting there, and I saw a buck walk into those trees right there, I would know I could go get, and that's in a northwest wind or a wet north wind, I would know I could go get in that tree, and there's a 90% chance he's coming back through. Mm-hmm. And I won't do it. I will not do it. I'll go check that trail. I have a trail camera there, and I'll go check it every 5 or 6 days and see what's been through there. And if I happen to see that a deer went through there when I'm checking that, which there's another one that I don't do. I think that's what you were talking about. If I'm going to go hunt a stand, if I was walking out there to hunt that stand, I will not go check that camera first to confirm anything. I was going to that stand because I felt like this is where I needed to be, wind's right, and I'm going to climb in that tree. When I get done hunting, I check the card.
I'll pull the card beforehand so I have something to do. Look on my lowdown thing. I just sit there in a tree.
But have you ever gotten out of the tree and gone somewhere else because the trail camera didn't tell you they were there?
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Every time I've done that, the deer that I'm looking for has not been on it. I still sat there. But it gives me about 30 minutes where I've got trail cameras to look at.
I've done that because of my gut.
I got
in a
blind.
Yeah.
with Junior.
Yeah.
And then I was like, nope, we got to go to the other one.
Yeah, you idiot. Your gut totally lied to you on that
No,
one.
I saw him.
I was tweaking out on that
Yeah, but
one.
hold on. So you need to understand the whole story on this one. So you want me to tell it?
Sure.
Okay, so Warren's hunting Junior, which ends up being 189 when Ryan killed him.
191, I think.
Oh, you did break 190.
Yeah.
Okay, so
but he wasn't that big
wasn't
that year.
that year. He was in
Yeah.
the 180s that year, or high
170s.
170s.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful deer. And he was 5 that year because when Ryan killed him, he was 6.
Yep.
He's a stud.
And so anyhow, this deer Junior, and you guys probably have heard me talk about the fact that he was coming out this trail multiple times. Like during the rut, like right now would be another day, he would just walk out of the same trail following the same doe at the same time of the day. And it's like, what is going on? And Warren would tell me, I'm going back over and sit in that hay bale blind. And I'm like, you're an idiot. He did it once. Now he did it twice. Then he did it third time, then a fourth time. Then Mom was hunting it and he was coming out. But anyhow, I don't remember exactly which one we were in. But Warren says, Easton's filming, Warren's hunting. Warren says he's going back to the hay bale blind. And I said, I would go to the other blind. That's about, 400 yards away.
Yeah, probably.
300 or 400 yards away, I had a double bull blind set up on a small food plot. When I say small, all the way across the food plot is
25
30 yards at max. Yeah. So anywhere the deer come into the food plot, you can shoot. And it's open. It's not, the hay bale blind is what saved Junior's life. Warren just couldn't get a shot because the hay bale blind was not meant for bow hunters. So anyhow, he would have been in a double bull blind. Warren gets in that. He says, okay, Dad. So him and Easton get in the blind. They get Easton setting up the camera when Warren.
Everything was set.
It was already set.
All of it.
Right. And then Warren decides, let's go to the hay bale blind. And so they get out of the blind and walk up to the other one.
I argued this.
Okay.
I said we should not be doing it.
And they get in it. So Warren goes and sits there that night, and they text me and tell me that they've moved blinds. And I'm like, you're an idiot. Warren gets to be right. He texts me back like an hour later. He says, just had Junior at 20 yards again, but I couldn't get a shot. But he frickin' showed up again. He came out of that trail. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So constantly for 2 or 3 days, I'm hearing Warren jawing at me, telling me how great it is that, he picked the right blind. Well, like I said, we don't check our cameras all the time. So finally I go check the camera that's by the other blind where they originally sat. And I come home and there's Junior standing in the food plot one day. I look at the date, I look at the time, and I'm like, holy crap, before he showed up at the hay bale blind, he was in that food plot at
like 30 or 45 minutes before
that. Yeah, like
that.
3:45 in the afternoon. Warren would have had a 25-yard shot at him where it would have been slam dunk type deal. So at the end, he made a mistake. But, neither one was a mistake.
The one that got away.
Yeah.
7 times.
Was it 7 times that he came out that trail?
I had 5 encounters with him. Mom had 2.
2, yeah. And the only reason I didn't let Mom shoot was the grass. She's only pulling 50 pounds, and he was standing at like 33 yards, and the grass, was kind of tall, and she was going to have to shoot through some of that grass, and I was just like, let's just let him walk out. I just don't want to take any chances on a deer like this, or any deer for that matter, and push a shot here. And so we thought for sure, because he was no clue we were there. Just like he never had a clue you were there.
Well, the doe winded us 2 or 3 times.
Really?
Yeah.
She didn't. She was unhappy about it, but he did not care.
That's where I got where I started reading on deer's nose.
Reading on deer's nose.
Yeah.
About learning about a deer's nose.
Yeah, because I was doing all the scent control stuff.
Okay. What did you think he was talking about?
I don't know what he's talking like reading something off their nose. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
After the 3rd time or the 4th time, then I just sat in the blind and started reading article after article after article about their nose, trying to figure, because I was so pissed at that doe. I did everything everybody says to do. And I knew she'd come out because they kept doing this. I was like, I knew there was going to be a doe, and she's going to come out, and if we can get her to get by us, we'll get a shot at him. And so had my clothes in a tote, had them all in earth things, had ozonics going, had everything sprayed, did everything. And she hits our wind, takes a matter of like 4 seconds, and then starts blowing. And I was like, what the hell? I'm done with this shit. And so I started reading all of it, trying to figure it out. And then after I read it all, then I was like, okay, now I understand. And that's why I now 100% believe from the science that I've read that it is impossible to fool them, and that there's no point in scent control.
Well, we know how you feel, and I disagree with you because I agree.
Okay.
I
There's
agree.
lots of people that don't understand
But
science.
I agree with your statement that you can't fool them 100%. Yes, but I think you can hinder it. I think you can have an effect.
They
So
smell in layers.
I understand. I know exactly what you're going to argue, and I'm going to tell you you're wrong.
So you just smell like you're like, oh, David's wearing cedar today.
Well, it's the same concept as you can't. It's similar, but in all reality, camo is not. I mean, camo's great and it makes you feel better. And there are times where one thing I can think of that is extremely beneficial is elk hunting. And when you're standing right in front of a tree and you're waiting for a bull to come running at you, camo is probably pretty freaking helpful. But more so than that is don't move.
Right.
Don't move at all. And my point with that is like a deer, for instance. It's not all the time, but when something picks me off or sees me or is checking me out or something, if I can sit still long enough and wait them out, you might get lucky and they might at least chill out or something or move on and not do something else. Versus if I'm just sitting there just trying not to move much or whatever, or I'm not getting up against a tree, things like that where I'm trying to blend in, they'll run off. Well, if I can hinder or try to give them the ability to, I know they're probably going to see, or they've already seen me, but if I can carry on, like get over it and go on, I'm in on it. Same thing with, you're not going to catch me freaking throwing my stuff in tubs and scent free here or there, that and the other or whatever. But if I can get a doe that smells something and she can definitely tell something's up and continues, and I've got a chance for them to do that versus just, here you go. Here's all my old spice and everything else, and boom, gone. I'll take the shot of a 50-50, a doe or a buck, whatever it is, that continues on. And that is a thing, whether you agree with it or not. There's some that are tweaked out about it the moment they smell anything that's even relatively close to anything not natural. And there's other ones that might smell something, they sit there and they're trying to smell it, and eventually they either give up or they still freak out. And so you never know what they're going to end up doing.
Well, the very first day the first day we saw that 8 this year, Eli and I sitting there, we had 4 does come downwind. He's like, I can't believe they didn't wind us. I was like, I know. I'm like, what are you wearing? He's like, huh? I said, I'm wearing mahogany teakwood. So I don't know how they didn't wind us.
Well, you can do the same thing. You'll have some that'll walk up the trail and they will win the crap out of you, like no other, no matter what. And there's some that won't. And
That's
you
my
have
point,
no way
that
to
it's not-
explain it. You have no way to figure it out.
Well, I can definitely say that it's not due to the cover scent or anything because I'm sitting there with absolutely none and they didn't win me.
You could have had some wild thing where it's blowing over their head.
The thermals could have been lifted in the air and it was going up. You
have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think that was what was happening, but okay.
Well, you have no way to prove it.
Well, I had about a 10, 15 mile an hour straight wind.
Which makes sense on top of a hill.
Right, and they're on a hill.
They're blowing over. You could be blowing over it.
They're above me.
10, 15 mile an hour wind is also very helpful.
Well,
I like having
10, 15 mile an hour is ideal.
Let me ask you this. And we weren't even, I don't know how this became a topic. You brought this up, and I don't know why.
He likes to argue about it.
Okay,
I'm just telling you that doe.
Okay, but let me ask you this.
3 times.
So if I go shower in whatever you call it, mesquite teakwood or whatever it is, mahogany teakwood, and I put on my deodorant and all that stuff, can you smell me walk by?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can smell when you walk by.
Oh.
However, if I shower in no scent stuff, if I keep all my clothes where I put nothing on them, no earth scent, no cover scent of anything, and I walk by you, can you smell me?
No.
Okay, so we have changed the ability of a human to smell each other, correct? To some extent.
No, absolutely you have.
Okay, so why can't you believe, I'm not saying that you're eliminating it, why can't you think you do the same thing to a deer? That if you can lower that amount of whatever he's getting, whether it's human, whether it's fecal matter, whether it's your shower, whether it's your toothbrush or whatever, if you can lower all those things, lessen those, then isn't there a chance?
Statistically speaking, you have a better chance
of him not smelling you than you do if you don't do any of that.
Because
that's science and that's statistics.
Okay.
That is true.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then.
Okay.
How does your dog identify you?
Smell.
Okay. And where is that smell coming from?
Your pores and underpits and everything from your head.
And your glands.
However you want me to describe it.
Okay. How much of that do you think that we produce?
A lot of it.
Okay.
Every second.
Okay. So if I told you that in 1 minute that you
It's
produce.
useless.
No, I'm asking you science here. In
We've
1
already
minute,
done this.
your body produces 100 times the amount needed for a deer to smell you. Would you tell me that it's worth it to not wear your deodorant?
Yeah.
100 times.
What I'm telling you though, Warren, is because
It's just a
100
general
times. Yeah,
look.
that's a general. Because we don't know what the
It has
effect of the
nothing-
wind, how much wind is blowing that way, what the thermals are doing. If everything's in that deer's favor, then it wins me very easily, even everything I'm doing. But if not everything is in that deer's favor and I'm doing as much as I can, then I'm lessening the chance. I'm not saying you ever fool them 100%. What I am saying is I'm reducing the amount. And Easton says it, he just says it differently than I do, because I have been saying this since day one, and I was using elk when I was doing seminars that I would tell people, I'm trying to buy 1 or 2 seconds. 1 or 2 seconds can be 3 or 4 steps, and 3 or 4 steps can be the difference between me getting a shot and not getting a shot, which is the same thing that he's talking about. If that dog just gets by and then the buck follows, then maybe I get a chance.
Would you ever race a cheetah?
Sure, I wouldn't win.
But you could train. You could work out. You could go to the gym. You could eat right.
Mm-hmm.
You could take steroids. Would you race the cheetah?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think your odds are of ever winning?
Not good. He's going to outrun me.
But what humans can run at what, 20 miles an hour?
Yeah.
If you're Usain Bolt.
Okay, so he's only 3 times faster than you.
Right.
But a deer can smell. We have 5 million olfactory receptors. They have 220 million.
I understand. I know what you're.
You're not making. You're
So
only
you're trying
going
to
the
race.
A cheetah. Come on. Yeah, a cheetah runs 70+ miles an hour. A human physically can't do it.
And
that is not even a relative comparison.
It
because
is.
We're not.
It's 100% relative because
It's
I'm
not
talking.
a
I just gave you
discussion
an
of-
example of something that's only 3.5 times faster than you.
All right.
And now we're talking about something that smells 1,000 times better than you.
Okay. We're never going. We're ending this podcast on that note. Scent control. It's up to you. Whether you do it, I say still continue to do it, fellas. And it just makes me feel better when I put earth scent on or whatever. So do whatever you feel like makes you confident that you're going to do it. Or if you're like Warren and you don't give a crap and you're like, then do that. Just don't sit in my trees where I'm hunting at. So other than that, we got to roll. I got to get back out and save a dog whole. So hopefully that we'll be filling that in. But we sure appreciate you guys. The last thing, because I didn't do it at the beginning and I needed to, and that is make sure you go to raised-hunting.com, check out our scents, check out our Nocks, check out our whole canine line.
There's special Raised Hunting podcast shirts available now as well. That if you go on the Raised Hunting website and then you can click on Raised Hunting products and your apparel, December 11th is the deadline for them. They are pre-order only. You say you'll put the link in the thing. There will be a link to go to get your official exclusive Raised Hunting podcast shirt. They're pretty slick, and I know a lot of you have been waiting on them.
And new sweatshirts are coming.
New sweatshirts are on the way.
All right, so we got new stuff for Christmas. So you guys, thank you guys again. Keep sending the testimonials. Send in the. We got tons of stuff on scents. We got lots of situational type stuff that you guys are sending in, and keep sending the stories. Send your pictures with them because Easton's putting them in the top secret classified book. And so we need to start adding more to our board.
That was supposed to be our OGs, and I've also have to wait. Like I get a whole pile of them and then send them off to get printed.
Gotcha. All right.
1 second, I have a wacky fact.
You got to hurry, man.
Says the one who talked all day. What? Can you guess what animal on Earth has the best sense of smell?
An elephant.
No.
I don't know. It'll be something that I would never even dream of, I'm sure.
A shark.
What? I don't know what a shrew is. Elephant's actually right.
What?
Yes. Power.
Wasn't such a wacky fact, was it? That means we win. All you need to do is scent control. Keep doing it.
Trunk.
Elephant's sense of smell is 5 times more powerful than humans, twice that of dogs, and stronger than rats. How they Elephants use their sense of smell to find
water.
Food and water, avoid
underground.
predators, and communicate. For example, elephants can detect water sources up to 12 miles away.
Underground. I'm not kidding on that. Watch Nat Geo Wild. I don't know why I didn't freaking say
Like they
this.
stick their trunk underground?
They dig to water. I'm not kidding. They will smell that at 12 miles, and they will go there, and you'll watch them dig with their trunks, and then water will be like a foot under the freaking ground, and all of them will start drinking out of that water.
That's unbelievable.
I can't believe I just
Trump
made
figures
fun of
that
you for
out.
that, and I know that.
They got a 10-foot nose.
As soon as Trump figures that out, he's going to have a cabinet of elephants drilling oil. He's going to be out there with a leash. Where are they at, guys?
Thanks, guys, for joining us on the Raised Hunting Podcast. Peace out. Good luck. Send us your pictures, man. Kill that big one.